We're talking about time today, folks. Welcome back to Results Through Integrity with me, Jason Duncan, and we're on our next installment of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This week, we're on week number 18. Week number 18. For those of you that have been following this, you know that we've been going through this card deck called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey, and there's one of these little cards for every week of the year, and I've been going through these, and we're on week 18. So this week's activity is talking about the habit of putting first things first. And the actual activity for this week is to use, let's see if I can make that show up, use your time well. You know, there are only a few things in life that once it's gone, you can't get back, and time is definitely at the top of that list. We cannot get time back. So if you're going to be an effective person, you have to use your time well. I know that lots of us have problems managing our time, and today's activity, this week's activity rather, is going to be how to do that better. So I'm going to share with you some tips that come straight from this card that I think you will find helpful and will make you more effective. So on the front of the card, the activities start off by saying this: at the start of the day, use the time matrix to estimate how many hours you will spend in each quadrant. Now you can see the time matrix here that I've created for you to take a look at. I'm going to go deeper into that in a moment, so it's going to go off the screen for now, but we'll come back to that in a minute. It says then, at the end of each day, record how many hours you actually spent in each quadrant. And what I'm going to talk about in a moment is how that the end of the day activity on using that time matrix actually is going to be more helpful for most people. I find it more helpful for myself. And then the third thing to ask yourself is this: are you satisfied with how you spent your time? What needs to change? Now, on the back of the card, it says this: ask yourself, which quadrant do I spend most of my time in? And what are the consequences of spending most of the time in that quadrant? So if you look here at the time matrix, now I've created this as an image, and you can see that there are 4 quadrants, and each quadrant is at the top and the bottom and the side. It shows what it is. So quadrant 1 is the quadrant of necessity. This is when you spend time in necessity. In other words, it's an urgent issue and it's an important issue. And there are things like crises, or emergency meetings, or last-minute deadlines, or pressing problems, or unforeseen events. These are things that are urgent and important. It doesn't mean they're necessarily the best things to spend your time on or that you get the most out of, but they are indeed necessity. Now, quadrant number 2 is that of effectiveness. And these are non-urgent things that are very important. And these are things like proactive work or important goals, creative thinking, planning, prevention, relationship building, learning and renewal, and even recreation. Those are very important things, but aren't necessarily urgent. And then quadrant 3 is the quadrant of distraction. These are urgent things, but are not important. Needless interruptions, unnecessary reports, irrelevant meetings, other people's minor issues, and unimportant email and tasks and phone calls and status posts, etc. Those are, again, urgent, but not important. And then in quadrant 4 is the quadrant of waste. And in that quadrant, you're going to have trivial work, avoidance activities. You ever done one of those? Excessive relaxation, television, gaming, internet, social media, those types of things. Time wasters, and then gossip. So those in quadrant 4 are the quadrant of waste, are not urgent and also not important. So as you look at this time matrix here, what the activity is telling us to do on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is to start your day and say, how many hours do I want to spend in each one? And honestly, while that may be a good activity, what my recommendation as a business coach and an entrepreneur coach would be is that you got to understand what these quadrants are and recognize in the moment what activities they are. But where it's going to be the most helpful for most people is at the end of your day, whether your day ends at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever time of the day your work day ends, is take a look at all the things that you accomplished and write Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4 next to it and decide which quadrant that was. And then analyze it. Did I spend most of my time in Q4? Was I just doing trivial work? I was avoiding good work. I spent a lot of time on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I was gossiping. Like if that's what you were doing, then you need to eliminate those activities because you need to use your time well. what you see here in this time matrix is that Q2 is where effective people are going to spend most of their time. They're going to be doing non-urgent but very important things. Their hair's not on fire. They're not running around, like we say in the South, with a chicken with their head cut off. We're actually focused on non-urgent but important activities. Proactive work, being proactive, and that's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Important goals in life. And we've talked a lot about goal setting as a habit of a highly effective person. Creative thinking. Are you scheduling time to think creatively? What about planning and prevention? How much time are you dedicating to that on your schedule each day? Relationship building. You know, relationships are the currency that are going to get you where you want to be in life. So make sure that you're spending time developing and building relationships. And then spend time in learning and renewal and even recreation. Those are all non-urgent, important things. The quote on the back of the card today from Stephen Covey says this: the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. I hope that you're enjoying following these 7 habits of highly effective people with me, Jason Duncan, and results through integrity. My mission in life is to use my gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can follow me on any of these social media platforms, and I would be so honored if you would hit the button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will see you next week with our next habit of highly effective people. Until then, have a great week.